a couple of times someone has come here to this house and they go, what does your husband do? And I go, he works for me.
Yes.
And then I just go,
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, bitch.
Welcome to Big Energy. I'm your host, Kassi Underwood, here to give you a dose of that good energy and talk with people who do it best. Each week, I bring you the knowledge we need to be the forces of nature we came here to be. You guys, I have Denise Duffield-Thomas on the show today. A couple of years ago, her book, Get Rich, Lucky Bitch, came highly recommended to me. And I can say it really did make me a rich, lucky bitch. I've since recommended her books to God knows how many other bitches, and it has changed their lives too. Denise Duffield-Thomas is the money mentor for the new wave of online entrepreneurs who want to make money and change the world. She helps women charge premium prices, release the fear of money, and create first-class lives. Her books, Lucky Bitch, Get Rich, Lucky Bitch, and Chillpreneur give a fresh and funny roadmap to living a life of abundance without burnout. Her Money Bootcamp has helped over 6,000 students from all around the world. She's a self-proclaimed lazy introvert, a Hay House author, and an unbusy mother of 3. She owns a rose farm and lives by the beach in sunny Australia. We talk about manifesting dream homes, the law of incremental upgrades, Denise's money mindset and practices and rituals, and what it's like to run a $3.8 million business. I'm so excited for you guys to hear this. Enjoy the show. Denise, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Kassi. I'm so excited. And I know we're going to have some juicy real talk conversations.
Oh yeah, there's going to be a lot of real talk. Your work has been so transformational for me. The way that you write about money just feels like light and fun. And I just love reading about it from you. Like I really could hear it. So I stumbled across your website probably like 2 years ago when I saw the picture of you with your 3 kids. And I knew that you were running a 7-figure business and that you had this beautiful VW van. I was like, I will have what she's having. Like so much of your life has been the kind of life that so many of us would dream of living, which is having it all. Even before you got married, you manifested a trip traveling the world with your husband, right? So can we start there? Yeah. With how did you manifest this?
Okay, well, let's go back a little bit further, right? So I was raised by a really young single mom. And when I say young, she was 17. She was single for most of my life. We moved around a ton. But the thing that my mom really kind of taught me is that she was always really optimistic about money. And we never really had a lot, but somehow something would happen, like she would win money or she would get some sort of windfall. And so I think I kind of grew up not even being that bothered about not having that much money for a long time because it was just like, oh, easy come, easy go, no big deal. And it wasn't until maybe high school that I started seeing a bit more contrast the way that other families lived. So that's just the context of being a lucky person, is because then in my 20s, I was kind of living that same kind of life, a feast or famine roller coaster. And something would always come up, like I would get offered a job or something would happen that, would kind of save me. And the year before I manifested that year-long travel, actually something even more amazing happened. I was in London and I had a student visa to try and stay in London with my then boyfriend, fiance. And I didn't have enough money for the tuition. And I remember I was kind of like, it's all going to be okay. It's fine. And I was really practicing that kind of certainty that I always saw in my mom, even though now I realize it actually caused a lot of anxiety living like that, feast or famine, which I'll talk about in a sec, because that's really important. Put a pin on that. But I kept on going, I think everything's just going to be fine. And I remember Mark saying, what are you going to do? Like, you have to pay your tuition next week. And I was like, it's going to be fine. And that stresses him out. And literally like a couple of days before that tuition was due, which meant I would have been kicked out of the country, by the way, if I couldn't afford to pay that, there was a bank error. And the bank put in £5,000, which was exactly what I had to pay for my tuition. And Mark was like, what the heck happened? And the thing, I mean, I had to pay it back, but the bank converted it into a loan, whereas previously they'd not been back for a loan to pay for that thing. So I was like, hang on, this is kind of cool. And so I just started kind of living as if maybe I am this really lucky person. And so I went to a workshop and the lady there had a publishing course. And I thought, God, I would love to write a book. And the publishing course was the Lucky Door Prize. And I sat there and I was like, I think I'm going to win this. And I said it to I was like, I feel so lucky today. I think I'm going to win it. And I did. And so I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then I was really flirting with the idea of going into coaching and being a life coach. And it's something I'd wanted to do for a long time. And I had a lot of confidence issues around it. And a friend of mine texted me and said, you just want a life coaching course. And I'm like, what? I registered for a webinar from this lady who had a life coaching school. I didn't show up to the webinar. I completely had forgotten about it. And she had announced on the call that 2 people had won scholarships and I was one of the people. And so I was like, oh my God, what is going on? And I was like, the universe has my back. This is amazing that I'm getting all these things that I want and I desire is somehow coming to me. And then the same thing happened with the travel. We went on honeymoon for our wedding and I was very desperately unhappy in my life and career. And on honeymoon, we went to Indonesia and we're in one of those huts in the ocean. And I went out one night and I stood under the stars and I made a wish. And I was like, universe, more of this, more warmth and joy and abundance and more of this. And I went home and I started telling everyone I knew that we were going traveling, that we we're going to quit our jobs and go traveling. And everyone was like, what are you going to, how are you going to afford to do that? And I was like, I don't know, maybe someone will pay me to do it, or maybe I can do some writing or I can do some speaking or something like that. I just had no idea, but I just wrote it and posted it on my wall. We're going to go traveling 6 months. Someone's going to pay me to do it somehow. And a friend of mine texted me and she said, oh my God, I found your perfect job. And it was for a couple to go testing honeymoons all around the world for 6 months, all expenses paid. And the salary was the exact amount of money that I had put down for monthly expenses. And that was just like, oh my God, I've asked for this thing. But the key for that, and this is why I wrote my first book, Lucky Bitch, some of those things were completely random, right? And I just can't explain them. Like the bank error in my favor, like what the heck was that? Yeah. Even the door prize, but even the winning the scholarship, I still bought a ticket in a way, right? Like I still put myself in that space. And even for the trip, I told all my friends that I was going to do it. And so I wouldn't have found out about the competition if I hadn't told people. And so I really like looking at things like that on the surface seem like they were just completely magical, and figuring out how you can reverse engineer that magic, because sometimes you can, and sometimes the universe surprises you. So that's what I wrote my first book about. And what I found funny though, notice how I was on honeymoon and I was saying more of this. Yeah. And I won a honeymoon competition.
That is amazing. I mean, it's like you were placing an order.
It was so literal.
Yes, I love that. That's what my belief is that we place the order and it's totally a literal delivery of whatever we're asking for. But what's amazing to me about what you do and your energy around it, and I think that this really comes through with your book, is how it seems to me that you're able to just really keep yourself there. You're able to really keep yourself in this mindset of it's just coming to me. You talk about daily manifesting practices in Get Rich Lucky Bitch. Do you think that's because you do a daily practice? Do you think it's because of the mindset that was instilled in you when you were a little girl?
This is a great question, because I think it depends. Okay. And this is where I think people sometimes feel like they have to be perfect all the time to deserve to manifest stuff. Yeah. And it's just impossible to be even positive 24/7. And I'm not, I'm really not. However, every practice that you do, especially if you can layer them into your day, into your life, it does become muscle memory. And there are things now that I probably do that I'm not even aware of that add to that. You don't need to be positive 24/7. You don't need to even think about your goal 24/7, but you kind of do need to crowd out some of that negativity and be enough in those moments to take some action or to even believe it's possible for yourself. I mean, this is a perfect example. I'm in my office. I'm overlooking the ocean. I can see whales going past because it's migration season.
Amazing.
This took 8 years to manifest, right? So it wasn't an instant manifestation, but throughout those 8 years, I was walking up and down the boardwalk saying to Mark, one of these is our houses. I don't know which one yet. And like, we were probably looking right at it when I was saying that, unbeknownst to us. The street was my password for years. The name of the street was my password. We would visit 3 times a week to go in the ocean and say, this is our beach. This is our beach. I'd drive and say, we're coming home. I would touch some of the walls of the houses, like around, and just walk around and go, I'm coming home. What would it feel like to live here? I went to every open house in this neighborhood for years. Real estate agents never spoke to me once. The realtors never spoke to me once. But I was like, I'm buying a house here. I'm buying a house here. And what I see people do is they go, I'll wait for the money to show up before I go to an open house. And it's like, well, if you don't even believe that you're worthy, stand in that house for free, and realtors don't care because it's a numbers game for them. And if you can't even visit that neighborhood, if you don't even believe that you're worthy of breathing that air for free, how is the universe going to make it happen for you? Also, during that 8 years, I had to look at what beliefs I had around it. So I actually bought a house 20 minutes inland because I didn't feel like I was worthy of trying to do here. And so actually what happened was so fascinating. And I'm like pointing out here as if you can see it, but my ocean
I get it. Right, I love it. Keep pointing.
It's amazing. So we bought a house 20 minutes inland, and then it wasn't ready in time. We had to spend 2 weeks in an Airbnb. So we got an Airbnb just here, pretty much the top of the hill. And every day we walked up and down, and I was sick because I went, I've just given up on my dream. And I had to really think, what is in me that is stopping this from happening? I feel like I have to be in my 50s or 60s before I'm allowed to live here.
Wow.
Yeah. Everyone here has worked really hard for decades, and that's why they deserve to live by the ocean. So I was just constantly trying to find these ways. We'd walk up and down, and finally one day I said to Mark, I'm really sorry. We've made a mistake. We actually sold that house. We owned it for 6 weeks. Okay. And we found another house. We ended up eventually buying here. The money wasn't just sitting there waiting. Like, we had to have the desire and found a place. And I said to my financial advisors, tell me how much, I'll go and make it. And I did. I went and did a couple of launches. I think sometimes people give up too early. Like, if you knew it was going to take 8 years for your dream house on the ocean to manifest, would that be exciting to you, or would that be demotivating? And I don't think I was ever demotivated. I was always just like, well, it's only a matter of time.
Right.
I'm going to live here.
I think that it's only a matter of time is a huge, important mindset that people need to take on if they're going to be manifesting, because that's how I think of everything that I want in my life. I'm like, it's happening. It's only a matter of time. And I think when you've got that going on, it does keep motivating you. You're never going to give up on it. What you did was so incredible, because you basically pulled out of the house where you realized you were short selling yourself on what you really wanted. And I've definitely been in that situation with an apartment. When I first moved back to New York City, I went into this one apartment and it cost a certain amount of money, and it was amazing. Every cell in my body felt elevated. I was in Brooklyn. I was looking out over a view of Manhattan. It was everything I wanted, but I chose a different apartment, and I realized I'd made a mistake fairly quickly after renting that one, but I didn't pull out. It didn't even occur to me to. So I love that you had the mindset that we can stop this now and we can just live in this reality for 6 weeks and figure out how to make it happen. First of all, what were like the signs that you hadn't made the choice that was right for you? And then what was it in you that allowed you to change it so quickly?
It was the desire I felt walking up and down the beach going, this is where I belong. And just this is where I want to live. And it wasn't convenient. But you know, the realization that I had around that experience is I was more worried about what other people would think of it, because I thought, we already got our architect to do a plan for this new house. We already have our financial advisors who have done the paperwork. And so it wasn't even the money, because we lost a little bit because we sold it so quickly, you know, and the taxes and things. It was more like, I realized I had a thing about inconveniencing other people or people thinking I was a flake. It wasn't even the money. It was like, but the architect is already, and then he ended up doing this house anyway, which he's won multiple awards for. But I was like, all these men are going to think that I'm such a flake. And so I always look for the lesson. What's the lesson here? And what am I afraid of? And what's the mindset lesson? Because I actually knew I could manifest the money. Like, I really did. I was like, it's just a matter of money.
Right.
We almost, even though I did that, right? Because then I was like, oh, we want to live on this street. I looked at one that was 2 doors down that doesn't really have an ocean view because it's the way it's tilted. I looked at that house, and the whole time I was walking around, and it was a perfectly nice house, I was just going, yeah, doesn't feel right. And I went up to the bedroom, and the bedroom is the only place that has an ocean view. Yeah. And I honestly heard a voice that said, get out, this is not your house. Wow. And I was like, huh. And so we went outside and we crossed the road, and we stood in front of what's now our land, which has a massive frontage. So it's like a 40-meter frontage looking to the ocean. And we stood in front of that, just chatting with our broker and our financial advisor. And both Mark and him were going, yeah, that was really great. Like, what a great house. Like, it's on the street that you want, and blah, blah. And I was like, And then I was like, oh, did you guys know that this one's for sale? And both Mark and our financial advisor were like, yeah, but it's 3 times more expensive. And I went, let's just see like how much we'd need, and like, is it even possible? And so I really love following those little signs. And I wouldn't say that I'm amazing at following my intuition or my body, but there's just sometimes you just have to go, does this feel good or does this feel bad? And like, walking up and down, staying in that Airbnb, I was just like, oh, I want this. I really want this. This feels so good. And then everything else, I was like, oh, this feels bad.
Yes. Yeah, you can feel it. That's really, really clear when your body's talking to you like that. So what does Mark think of all this? Because he's been on this journey with you forever. You've all have had crazy things happen. At one point, you were having an upper limit, and then you realized in the car, oh, there's always more money. And then there's money flying on the windshield suddenly. Like,
yeah.
Right? Like, you all have had
that happened. No, this is really great. So this happened on the day that we were picking up our keys for this property.
Oh my God. No way.
That happened on that same day. Yeah. So we had to go pick up the keys for this property that we took. And also, by the way, all we bought was an abandoned apartment. Like, it wasn't even a house. So it was not only was it 3 times more than an actual house, it was just an abandoned apartment that we'd have to demolish. And we ended up spending another couple of $1 million to actually build a house. So anyway, we were going to go pick up the keys, and both Mark and I were just feeling the hangover of that manifestation. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And we got in the car and we were driving, and we were both just snipping at each other and just going, like, because we could both feel the stretch of it. Yeah. And it was so funny. And I said to him, oh, babe, we're really going to have to tighten our belts over the next year, because obviously we've got to demolish this place, and then we've got to start building and, like, you know, do all the things. And he goes, oh my God, that doesn't sound like you. Normally, you know, you're so abundant with your thinking. And I went, oh my God, babe, you're right. There's always more money. And as I said that, a literal shower of money hit our car. And it was like $50 notes, which in Australia are big yellow notes, like big plastic yellow notes. And it was a whole bunch of them, like, I mean, easily a couple of $1,000s worth hit our windscreen. And our windscreen wipers turned on automatically because they thought it was rain. I don't know. And we both screamed, and it was so funny. And he goes, oh my God, do we pull over? And I was like, no, first of all, it's not our money. Secondly, it's a busy road. But then I was like, no, that's not the lesson. The lesson is there's always more money. And to this day, like, occasionally I'll drive past that road. I did today. And I always just think, every time we go past it, I always go, there's always more money. There's always more money. Because there is. And the same thing happened a couple of years ago when we bought a farm as well. And the lesson for me on that was, oh my God, you're so greedy to have two houses. Not only do you have your dream house by the beach, you want a farm as well, like a holiday house farm. And I remember doing the same thing of like, oh, there's always more money. There's always more money. Because actually in most places, there's no more land for sale. You know, you think of somewhere like Hawaii where it's so hard to buy land, but there's way more money than there is special properties or special land or opportunities. Those things are usually finite. There's heaps more money out there. Like, and if you think of how many extra clients you need just to buy the thing and to loop back to the start, right? When I was manifesting all this free stuff, it got to a point where I went, I don't want free stuff. And so one of the quickest ways to manifest something is to actually buy it.
Yes.
Like just buy it. And most things are a buyable experience. And so it's like marketing is manifesting.
Yes.
Getting a new client is manifesting. Putting an offer out, that is a manifesting activity. It's not just waiting for things. And I know it sounds like ironic to say that because so many things just happened to me, but it gets to a point where I was like, I'm a big girl now. I can handle money. Don't just give me stuff like a little girl. And so now I'm just like, well, if I want it, how much is it going to cost? How many money boot camps do I need to sell to just buy the thing and not wait for the universe to kind of deem me the lucky one?
And it's a huge mindset shift to fully get that. With my private clients, I have them fill out this sheet called the Money Expander. And they're always really surprised that the Money Expander is the outgoing money. It's what you want to buy that expands your incoming money. And they're like, wait, what? Shouldn't that be the incoming money? And my belief is whatever I buy, I'm going to manifest that money immediately. Like it just like when I invest, it comes back immediately. And that's totally something that I got from reading your book, the Get Rich Lucky Bitch, just expanded me so much, so quickly. Actually, this is a perfect place to talk about the law of incremental upgrades.
I want us to be really clear. If you are in a situation that feels poor, that is real, right? So you can say, this is real, but temporary. And I think it's important because sometimes law of attraction stuff, it kind of pushes people to like spend money before they have it, or it just feels too far away, or you feel like you're being fake and it doesn't feel real anyway. So let's acknowledge, like where you are is where you're at, and that's totally fine.
Yes.
The idea is how can you bring more richness into your life and more abundance? Because when you are putting up with so much stuff, and when you're poor, there's so many layers to poverty. Like I see my mum still do it, even though now, I mean, I financially support her. She doesn't have to do this. She'll still go, oh, I'll park at the free park and walk to the shopping center. Or like she'll weigh her luggage because she doesn't want to pay any extra. And that stuff is so embedded in your life. You're always trying to find the hack, and it takes up so much energy. And so what can you do with where you are and what you've got right now to increase the moments of abundance in your day? And this is where the incremental upgrade comes from. And it could start with using your best stuff, using your best china, using the nice soaps, using your perfume. It could be, I have a spare blanket in my office. And actually, because today the aircon's off because we've had a power cut. But like this brings just a little bit of pleasure in my life that you might not even notice, but the absence of pleasure takes up a lot of bandwidth.
Yes.
And so then you just constantly look at what are the friction things in my life that make me feel poor and inconvenienced. And there's some that are really obvious, and there's some that you'll get to later on because they're so embedded in how you live your life or how your families live their life. And then you upgrade them one by one. But you always start with the inconvenient ones. And it's not about eventually having a gold-plated thing, because what feels first class to you might not feel first class to someone else. And so one example for me that caused me friction every single day was fights over who had the AirPods. And back then it was like the wired ones. And so I have now a set that lives in my office It's permanently on charge. As soon as I finish this call, they'll go back into my little case. So they'll always be charged. And I never have to argue with Mark about it. Now, that's something that does cost money, but there are little things like that in your life. And I would love to hear if there was one for you that really made a difference. There'll be things like that in your life that every day annoys you so much, and it takes just a little bit of your bandwidth away. And it can be either solved with a little bit of money, or it can be solved with a system or something like that. So I'd love to hear one from you that like really made you feel annoyed.
Oh, I've got one. Okay.
Good.
So when I was reading your book, I remember looking up and I was sitting in my living room, mother of a 1-year-old at that time, and we did not have a rug on the floor. I lived in Gloucester, Massachusetts. It's on the water. It's freezing cold, like 0 degrees. We didn't have a rug in the living room, let alone like a bookcase for my son's books. And I was like, okay, I'm going to buy us a rug. So I went on overstock.com and I bought a $70 rug. The same time the following year, I bought a $5,000 rug. And it wasn't like a bad financial decision. It wasn't like I didn't have the money or I was going to have to eat ramen. Like I had the money and I was just buying it because I wanted it. It was just that I really practiced the law of incremental upgrades. I was just so used to living in that deprivational way. I mean, I just
make do.
Yes, make do, deprive yourself of anything that doesn't need to be there, wasn't going to be there. Like 2 plates was fine because there were 2 adults in the house, right? Like it was like that kind of thing. And so over the course of the year, I just started upgrading. And through that, I allowed myself to desire more. I dismantled a lot of the beliefs about what it meant about me to want certain things. And like you've brought up, once I realized there's always more money, and it really is so real to me now, like there's always more money. I don't deprive myself of anything. Then I started realizing the blocks around people that you're talking about, or fear of what other people think. And as I started dismantling that, I allowed myself to have so much more. And I allowed myself to be available to so much more service, to supporting so many more people, to having a lot more clients. And it's like, yeah, a $5,000 rug that I desire is a no-brainer. But that was a huge shift. And it started with an incremental upgrade.
Exactly. And it's not even about the thing, but it's being deserving and allowing yourself to receive and have pleasure and warmth. I mean, for me, warmth is abundance.
Yes.
You know, it really is. And I think I lived in London for 10 years. I never had a proper winter coat. I never had proper winter boots, because there was something there where of like, no, you have to suffer.
Oh my God. I lived in New York for years. And one day, a friend of mine who I happened to know about her that she had $50 million in the bank. And she was the first person I ever met who I knew that she had personally $50 million. I was making $2,400 a month. And she was like, girl, why are you wearing any winter jackets? I was like, what are you talking about? It was like a vegan, tiny little thing. It's like that. I totally relate. I mean, it's that deep deprivational mindset.
Have to suffer. Absolutely. Yeah. I was in London literally with like my denim jacket, just freezing my tits off the whole time. It would have cost £20 from Argos to get an electric blanket for my bed, you know. So warmth for me is part of it. It's really looking for what those symbolic upgrades are. And sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes you swing a bit too far and you make decisions and go, oh, well, I actually shouldn't have spent that because it's not that meaningful for me. Yeah. But that in itself is a lesson, because if you've always just been given what, like, oh, I have to be grateful for what I'm given, or, you know, I have to accept that. That's a lesson in itself that's going to take some practice, or practice your discernment muscles. What do I even like? And there's incremental ways to do that too, right? So if you go to a cafe and you look at the menu, just for a while, don't look at the price and ask yourself, what would I choose? Because you're not going to spend $1 million at a cafe. Like, it's a pretty low stakes experiment. But if you just go, oh, wow, I always order this because it's the cheapest. But asking yourself what you like will be such an eye-opening experience, because you might just go, I don't know. What am I allowed to have? And I always remember this. I was at a conference one time, and it was like a millionaire conference. And I was like sitting at the back in the cheapest seat going, wow. And the lady the lady said she stayed in this really fancy hotel in London, and she called up and said, oh, there's no room service menu. I want to order some room service. And they're like, well, what do you want? She was like, no, what am I allowed to have? And they went, anything you want, just tell us. And she had to hang up the phone and think about it, because how many times have we just been given that opportunity, especially as women? We've seen our mothers and our grandmothers. You get what you give and you have to be grateful for it, instead of going, wow, if I could have anything. And then you'll realize that the thing might not necessarily be the most expensive. This is where it starts to become more personal to you. I live in a regional beach town, and I went to the big city to go see Hamilton, and it was just amazing. But like, there's all these boutique stores that we don't have in our little regional town. And I tried on this $1,000 blue suede cape. And it was this fancy store that only sold these capes and a trench coat version. And they were in like all different colors. You know, those kind of boutiques that they're so weird, right? Even just going in, I was like, wow, this is so different. Like, I just feel like I belong. And I was just wearing jeans and boots. And I tried on this cape and I went, I can afford it, but it's like, yeah, it's all right. But then we saw Hamilton and I bought all the merch.
Yes.
All the merch. And I was like, that's abundance for me. I loved it. And I booked another 2 times. So I'm going in September and December. And I was like, wow, that's cool. I didn't feel like I was a fraud going to that shop. So that's growth. I didn't feel like I had to buy it because she didn't think I could afford it. I could afford it. I chose not to. And then I spent money on something that was super meaningful for me. That's taken me years to get to that place. And it has to come from practice. You have to put yourself in those situations and go, wow, now that I'm sitting on this amazing couch that I was really intimidated by, do I even like it? Interesting. And that's just going to be practice.
I love that. It brings me to this question of the identity crisis that can happen when you start making a lot of money. So when I first went to making a huge leap within a few months, I was really literally confused about what I should be wearing. Like, I was used to shopping like the sale racks at H&M. I was like, wait, I wore really weird clothes for a few months because I was like, what am I supposed to wear now? I got like Spanx. I was like, I'm supposed to wear like Spanx pants. Is that what rich ladies wear? It was so confusing. And then over time, I started to settle into, I can like go to Saks Fifth Avenue and I can also go to the vintage stores or the secondhand kind of stores that I love. But there's like a deeper identity crisis that kind of happens when you make a shift.
Yeah.
How did you navigate that?
I totally relate to that. So first of all, I think this is something that everyone listening can start working on now, is what are your assumptions about wealthy people? And what do you feel like you would have to change about yourself to be deserving of wealth? Because then you're just pushing it away because you're like, well, here's me. And then here's that rich version of me. She's perfect. She would never swear at her kids or pick her nose or something like that. And so you're just pushing it away. And if you can just go, I'll just be exactly me and rich, then that's great. I love thrift shopping. I don't thrift clothes a lot, but I love thrifting furniture. It's like, seriously, especially Marketplace. I'm like buying stuff. I'm just texting Mark, go get out $60 and go pick up this thing from this lady constantly. When I went to America a couple of years ago, I'd already hit the $1 million mark. A friend took me to Dress Barn and I loved it because their fit model must be exactly my proportions. And so a friend of mine was laughing because she was like, Dress Barn, oh my God. And I was like, you don't understand, everything in here fits me. And I've never had that before. Next time I'm in America, I'm like, where's the dress? Do you have a Dress Barn? I love it because everything fits me somehow. And so I think there is a little bit of identity crisis that you can work on now. And there'll be new things too. So I find sometimes people can act a little bit strange around you. Like last weekend, my best friend, who's a furniture renovator, like I buy stuff and then she renovates it for me. It's a perfect relationship. She had a workshop at my farm. And so I just said, can I just tag along in the back? Like, and I was just wearing jeans and no makeup. And one of the ladies, she was just like, is this your property? And I'm like, yeah, it is. And she kind of didn't believe me. She was like, but do you live here? And I was like, no, I live in town at the beach. And she's like, so are you selling that one? I was like, no, I have both. And I could just see her face going like, what is your husband? Like,
Right.
she just, it couldn't compute for her. And so a few times things like that will happen where I go, oh yeah, it doesn't bother me because I'm just like, well, I don't need to dress to impress anyone anymore. But I totally did what you did. I bought high heels and yeah, it was just weird. But a couple of times someone has come here to this house and they go, what does your husband do? And I go, he works for me.
Yes.
And then I just go,
that's right. That's right.
yeah, bitch. But I'm just the same person. And like, I really want people to hear this too. I scared all the fucking time about stuff. I still have so much imposter syndrome, not about being a millionaire, like about the money side. I have a lot of imposter syndrome about being a writer, for example. Like I've found new things to work on. And even yesterday, I had a session with my coach who does kinesiology. And we did an hour on, I'm not a writer. I'm not a real writer. I'm not allowed to make money from writing. I'm not allowed to have a creative life. There's never a time where you go, oh my God, I'm so perfect. I'm like such a bitch sometimes to my husband. I'm such a cranky mom. But that's who I was before. And I would be that same person. I don't have to worry about the day-to-day stuff of bills, but I still have to think about money. I still have to do my accounting. It's not like I don't have to work anymore. I still do. I'm definitely an abundant person. I know I can make more money, but I'm not that nice. I don't know. I'm not that perfect. I'm still a bitch.
That's so funny. I love that. It reminds me of your mindset shift. A wealthy woman looks like you. And that was a huge one for me. When I read that in your book, I was like, oh, wait, I literally, without changing anything, I could be a wealthy woman. I, was in the literary industry for a long time. And I saw people go from not having any money to suddenly having like huge bestsellers. And they were pretty much the same. So I would see these overnight successes and it was like, oh, she's kind of like me. But it never really registered until I read your book, A Wealthy Woman Looks Like Me. Like really, like going and looking in the mirror and be like, this is what a wealthy woman looks like. It really is life-changing.
Yes. And not just when you're like wearing nice clothes and have makeup on. This is where the real true experience comes from. So everyone listening, get a whiteboard pen and write this on your mirror because it will uncover stuff. It will uncover stories that you have. Someone asked me this just yesterday on a podcast. She said, oh, tell me, what is the vision of an empowered, wealthy woman? And I was like, you, honey, like, look at yourself. You are as well. If you do that every day and just go, this is what a wealthy woman looks like, or this is what a wealthy non-binary person looks like. This is what a wealthy lesbian looks like. This is what a wealthy mother looks like.
Yes.
It's really fun to do the words that will trigger you and give you a little bit of a like, ugh, because your brain will go, no, it's not. Maybe if you lost 10 pounds, it would be. And you go, no, this is what a wealthy woman looks like. You start to acclimatize yourself to the possibility that you're allowed to make money as well. And that's what the incremental upgrade stuff is too. It's acclimatizing yourself. So incrementally it feels normal and it feels okay. And then you're more inclined to see opportunities and go, yeah, I can do that. You're more inclined to take action. You're more inclined to send that invoice. It's not just magic. It's acclimatizing yourself to being that person that you already are. You already are inside. So everyone go do it. Send us a picture. DM us a picture of your mirrors because it's super powerful. And I see this in Money Bootcamp all the time too, where people do their selfies and everyone's different weights, different ages. Some people do it and they've just woken up and their hair is all over the place. And it changes all of our brains because we go, oh yeah, it's not just me that's allowed. All of us are allowed to do it. And if she can, why not me?
Right. That is so good. What made the biggest difference for you when you moved from being a 6-figure to a 7-figure entrepreneur?
It's a really great question because I think sometimes people feel like it is just one thing or like one thing will make the difference.
Yeah.
I've been posting on social media every day for 11 years. I have sent out a newsletter every week for 11 years. Did I feel like it every time? No, I did not. And now, yes, I have better systems and I batch things and schedule them and all that kind of stuff. But I've never had a viral moment in that time. My follower count has been incremental, but I've just shown up and I've made offers shown up, here's how you can work with me. Shown up, here's how you can work with me. And I see people, they'll do something and then they'll go away for 3 weeks, 3 months, a year. And it just doesn't work like that. So the only thing that I would say has been the consistent thing is consistency. It's the only thing, because yes, there are nuances within that, right? Yeah, you can get better at your message and you can tweak your target market. I've got become clearer over time of who I can really serve. I've had a ton of coaches in that time, but no one coach has suddenly like made me $1 million. Each one has been a little puzzle piece of either something I needed for that time, accountability or butt kicking or love or helping me with, a skill that I didn't have. But the one consistency has just been consistency. It's not like when you start out, you send a newsletter a week, and then when you're a millionaire, you're sending 5 newsletters a week. It's the same thing. It's the same. But when I send out that newsletter, I send it out as if it was going to thousands of people. And I've seen people go, oh, I'm not going to send my newsletter out. I've only got like 50 people on my list. What makes you think you're going to do it later on? Right. It's the same amount of work. It's just leveraged time and leveraged income. And I think there's something there about like we still live in this very linear thing of 1 hour of my time equals 1 hour of income somehow. And there's no real algorithm. There's no sum that is fixed on that, right? You can do 1 hour of work and have it be leveraged so much more because of the power of technology now that we have. But I still show up each day, every week.
Just being consistent. So there wasn't like a thing that got you from 500K to 750K or 750K to 1 million.
Yes, there was. So I remember I hit an upper limit at 120,000. And this is something I teach in Money Bootcamp too. When you hit a income plateau, there's always a reason. There's always a reason. And so I had to do that inner work. What is the reason? Why am I stuck at 120? And I realized it was because my uncle, that's how much he made. And he was the richest person in the family.
Wow.
And so, so it felt super damaging to make more money. So it was a mindset shift, right? And then I was like, oh, wow, it's safe for me to be the richest person in the family. I had to do weeks of work on, oh my God, is everyone going to ask me for money? Because my uncle's very generous and he would always pay when we went out places, and he paid for me to come home from London to go to my nan's funeral. So there was a lot of emotion, right, in that of, hang on, I can't make more money than him at just talking to people, doing something I love. That's not okay. The next one for me was 250,000 because I was like, wow, I'm making good money, but I was working pretty hard. There, I was like, getting up at 4:30 to have international coaching clients because I didn't want to set boundaries with people. And I remember like going, wow, I'm working, whatever it was, 60 hours a week. And so I was going, okay, so if I want to make $1 million, I'm going to have to work. And I was like doing the math going, how am I going to do that? Because I still thought it was a linear journey. And so the mindset shift there was, oh my God, I'm going to have to work less to earn more. I'm going to have to put some boundaries in place. I'm going to have to increase my prices. I'm going to have to be smarter about how I do things. I'm going to have to add some passive income. And that was a whole wormhole in itself of passive income. That's not allowed. That's cheating. And so each step, it wasn't a mechanical problem. It wasn't a logistical problem. It was totally a mindset shift. When I was at like the 750 mark, I remember that's when I wanted to have a baby. And so all of my mindset shifts at 750 were, you can't make money and have kids. You're going to be such a bad mom. You're going to lose your ambition if you have kids. You're not going to be able to do your business. And so I had to work on that. And then it was easy. And I can't remember like massive mindset shifts around there. I've been at the like 3 to 3.5 million mark for a couple of years. And this year we'll do about 3.8. And I remember saying when I was like, oh, we've kind of been at this level for a couple of years, because I was kind of used to doubling every year. And I was like, what's going on? Even now I'm like, but I'm going to have to work so much harder. And that's not true. Like, it's the same thing. It's the same lesson you have to learn. The numbers are totally irrelevant. Like, they really are. It's just an extra zero or it's whatever. But you have to get it straight in your head, the reasons why you're resisting. And so for some people, it's looking at what other people are earning and what those stories are around that. sometimes you're not even aware of it, but it's a tax threshold. And you're not even aware of it, but it's like, oh my God, I'm going to have to pay more tax, or I'm going to lose a benefit or alimony, or I'm going to have to pay alimony. And so there's always symbolic, like a symbolic reason, or I'm going to have to work harder, or, oh my God, I'm going to have heaps of staff, or my husband is going to be upset because I'm edging towards his salary, or it's my dad's salary, or it's just a number that I got told when I was 10 years old that I would never make more than X. There's always a reason. And then you just go, oh, I'll just make more money.
I love that. I mean, that's something that was so huge that I've gotten from all of your books is the answer is always inside of me. There's always some reason or story or something that I've made up about why I can't earn more. We always have the opportunity to look inside more, find out what the story is, and then release it. I've hit kind of a plateau at a certain point, and I'm like, why? Because things are really good, but I really got the download just now when you were talking. I was like, oh, shoot, it's showing up in every area of my life. This same block is showing up everywhere. And then, it doesn't have to be a block. It's just a choice that I'm making to believe.
And what do you think it is for you? Like what's that symbolic thing? Is it someone else? Is it like a belief about working harder?
It's trust. I need to trust other people. I always keep a really low overhead and then gone through a lot of teams. I'm like, people don't want to support me. I've gotten through the people don't want to support me a little bit. But now I'm like, it takes a long time to trust somebody. So I'm like my rock solid team member, before bringing her on, I worked with her for like a year. And then I brought her on through agencies. And then I brought her on officially. But I'm like, I don't know if I can trust other people.
I really resonate with that, by the way.
You do?
I totally do. We're actually hiring 3 roles at the moment. And I'm just going, but I've always had a very lean team.
Yes.
We can do it ourselves. And what just came to me then was, what if there's another pandemic and we've got all these people that I'm responsible for? I don't think you'll ever get to a point where there's not going to be some fear like at the back, of that going. But yeah, I totally resonate with what you're saying of like, I can't trust everybody to do it the way I want to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And the other day I was working with one of my coaches and I was like, what is holding me back from even bringing in the team members? So I'm hiring several people now. And I was like, what is holding me back from actually bringing them in? When I don't trust, I also create situations where I can't trust people. So one thing I used to do was spread people way too thin. So they were like doing a million things that no one team member should be doing.
Which I think brings us to a really crucial upgrade that so many of us need to have is making sure we're surrounded by people in the same conversation as us, because I've got some really great girlfriends and great business groups where we can have these conversations, like big girl conversation. You know what I mean? Like it's bigger company problems that when you're a newbie and it's you doing everything, you don't quite, you can't just be around people like that if you want to grow into the CEO role. So it's always making sure you've got that appropriate support around you for people who understand what you're going through. Otherwise it's lonely, right?
Yeah, it really is. And in terms of expansion, when you're with people who are further along the path than you, or people who are like right around the same area, you end up getting ideas from them. Like, oh, I didn't know that was possible. It just gives you so many opportunities to hear the right things.
Oh, absolutely. And someone can go, well, I have a spreadsheet that can help you with that. And I've created a system. And hey, do you want to look at my job description for that role? And what's everyone paying for this role at the moment? It's so important because it's lonely otherwise. And if you're just sitting there in your room, just freaking yourself out about adding someone new to your payroll, you need to see it to believe it for yourself. And this is true at every level, right? And so we're really lucky now we can curate our experiences. Like there's so many free groups you can join. But I also think part of that upgrade is you can just pay to be around people that you want to learn from. People say, how do I manifest a perfect mastermind? I'm like, buy into one.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's a buyable experience.
If you're a bad bitch who's ready to create a massive shift into abundance and ease around money, I've got good news for you. I officially reopened the doors to my popular program, Money Metaphysics for Maverick Women. It's a 6-month group program where you receive direct guidance from me, live calls, instant access to my 13-module course, Big Money Energy, plus a 2-day in-person retreat and tons of other live support and content. Learn more about the program at kassiunderwood.com/MMMW. Check it all out now and register at kassiunderwood.com/MMMW.
So because now I'm working on my imposter syndrome around writing, I'm listening to podcasts about writers. And actually I'm listening to one about failure and imposter syndrome for writers. And I'm believing it's possible for myself, hearing all of these stories. And all of those things are incremental upgrades too. Oh, she could do it. Oh, it doesn't sound so hard. Oh, maybe I can do that too.
Side note, I freaking love your writing. It is some of my favorite writing ever. I can just drink it like water. I could read it all day long.
This is the thing, right? I'm fine as a business writer and a self-help writer. I'm just like, that's just me being a bossy bitch, right? It was pretty easy now in hindsight, but I'm switching genres. And this is the thing, when you do something new, whether it's a new income level or whatever, some of your old insecurities are going to find a little chink in your armor. And so that's why I'm saying it's always the same work, but slightly different facets of it. And I'm like, yeah, I could write another self-help book. It's just me being bossy. But I'm trying to go into a genre where I'm like, but I'm not a real writer. I just tell people what to do.
Of course you are. But yes, totally. I know. And I love that you find your inner triggers. That is so brilliant. I mean, that's really how it works, is to find the places where we feel like that's not possible, and to excavate those. Everything is on the other side of that.
But the muscle memory of that is it's not as derailing. At the start, I think a lot of those things are quite derailing. And so maybe that's comforting for people to hear. Things that scare you today won't scare you tomorrow.
Exactly.
You do get a sense of competence in some area. But I think it's just really important to tell people as well that absence of fear is not your goal. That's not what you're waiting for. You're not waiting for all the green signals and for things to always feel great, because there's never a time where everything's going to feel perfect, and you're always going to be finding new areas of growth. So I come at things now from a place of curiosity, because I'm just like, oh, this is so interesting. I figured out that I don't feel like I'm a real writer. Oh, this is great. How can we work on this? But it's not like acknowledging those fears is going to take you back to zero, if that makes sense.
Yes, totally. And the most powerful people I know, the most successful people I know, chase their fears, chase their limiting beliefs, hunt them down, search them out. And that's how it works. I know I'm never going to get to the end of fear, but even now I'm way less afraid of getting afraid of something. I'm like, oh, big opportunity on the horizon. If there's a fear.
Absolutely. For example, interviews, right? So in my first year of doing interviews, I would have stayed awake all night stressing about this interview, and I would have had my stomach in knots around it, and then now I've done 1,000 interviews, and so I can just jump in my office 2 minutes before, because my headphones are set up, my camera's set up, everything's set up. And it's not even a blip of fear for me. But the idea of doing, I don't know, a TV interview, that would be a growth edge for me. And so that's where I was say, what scares you today won't scare you tomorrow, but there'll be new things to be scared of.
There's always new things to be afraid of.
Yay! Yay. Fun. The ones at the start were so scary. And today when I was having acupuncture, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have a boundary conversation. And it's not as scary, but it doesn't mean just because you have money that everything in your life is going to be perfect. And sometimes people go, I want to be rich so I never have to think about money again. And I'm like, I think about money all the time. There's always new things that I want to buy and stretch myself. We're doing a massive big renovation at our farm at the moment. There's always more money, but I have to be like, oh, okay, well, let's make sure we're doing a launch for that. Let's making sure we're opening all the receiving buckets to receive. So it's easy. Not that I don't know, money's just magically appearing. I'm a custodian, a steward of that money.
I love that. A steward of the money. So good. So what do you think is the most unconventional or maverick way that you run your business? that's unlike, other people, or has really required you to listen to the voice within?
So I have ADHD. And so I have to be really careful. Oh yeah. So many entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
That's why I love having an interview with someone else who has it, because no one has to speed up the interview.
Right.
Ever. But what I see sometimes with people with similar personality traits or, whatever, is that they break shit all the time. And so they throw things out that are working. They change things before they can work. And so something that I do to remind myself to not break my business is all roads lead to boot camp. All roads lead to boot camp. So sometimes I create detours, like a little course, and I go, nope, shut that shit down. All roads lead to boot camp. And so when I want to manifest money for something big, I'm just like, sell more boot camps. And that doesn't mean I don't love every person in my boot camp. I freaking do. And I serve them really beautifully and well. But I really am so focused. And that's why I think I didn't realize I had ADHD for so long, because on the outside, it does seem like I'm very focused and disciplined and consistent with my business, but I've just created ways to not sabotage it. And so I can write about anything I want in the top end of my business. I just don't break the back end. And I see people break the back end all the time. And so they never actually are able to receive money because there's no bucket to catch it, because they've broken the bucket. Does that make sense?
Yes, that just really hit home for me. I totally hear it. Don't break the business. I know that in Chillpreneur, which we have talked about in a roundabout way, but haven't been like totally zeroing in on, you talked about narrowing down your brand, having to kill a lot of darlings with different things that you've rolled out, the money app, physical products, and that sort of thing. How did you decide all roads lead to boot camp?
See, I don't know if it ever was a super conscious decision at the start. Like, it was just going to be a side course that I thought, I really would love to tell people about all my money hacks and tricks. And so I'll just run a live 6-week course. And this was back in 2012. And like, it just felt right, and I really actually did feel a calling to talk about money, like a very strong calling. And I rejected it. I was just like, I'm not allowed to talk about money. Someone has to give you a money badge and then you're allowed to talk about money. Like, I was like, where's my badge? And I think the shift for me was going, I really care about this conversation and I want to contribute to it. I don't feel the need to be a guru. So almost like from the start, I just took the pressure off myself to be the guru of the gurus. And then I was just like, this feels really good. I'll keep on doing it. And so it's a really tricky thing, I think, sometimes for people to find what the niche is. And I never thought it was the perfect thing for me. It just felt like I really care about this. Like, I want to contribute to this, and that's cool. And that doesn't mean that I don't get bored of it sometimes, but I don't break it. I don't break it because I just go, that must mean I need to just do a hobby or something to not make my brain be self-destructive. Does it still help people? Am I still being useful? And then I fall back in love with my business all the time because I don't break it. But that doesn't mean that was my first business, right? I've had lots of different attempts of, I just want to help people. What is that going to look like? And so don't despair, people listening, if you're still in a practice business, but at some point, let things play out and just ask yourself, like, I heard my friend Amber McHugh say this. She's like, don't confuse a bad day with a bad business.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Because I was like, I've had heaps of bad days, but I had to tweak things. I was like, I got really sick of my community group for a while, but it was because I wasn't willing to set boundaries in that group. People were tagging me on Christmas Day one year and I was like, that's it. I don't think, like, I'm just not cut out. And then I was like, no, we're going to take 2 weeks off over Christmas. Like, I can set a boundary. You're allowed to tweak it. For me, saying all roads lead to boot camp doesn't mean that I have to put up with things that I don't like about my business. I shifted the way I served my clients. Instead of doing 4 6-week versions a year, which meant you were constantly either in pre-launch, launch, post-launch, delivery, all at the same time. I was like, how is this going to work for me going forward? So we do 2 calls at the end of the month. And I'm like, now it feels sustainable for me. And so it doesn't mean you're not allowed to change things that don't work or renegotiate the way your business runs. If I get bored, I go, cool, well, what would I like to write about that eventually would be an all roads lead to bootcamp?
Oh, I love that. Yeah. So you let that guide your writing, you let that guide any other courses that you roll out. It's just always everything is going to lead back to bootcamp. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's how I can really help people. It doesn't mean that my social media content doesn't sort of stray slightly into, but I'm like, does it cover money, manifesting, marketing, motherhood and baby stuff? They're my kind of 4 pillars. And within that, I can talk about pricing. Pricing's in scope. So I had to be just clear with myself, like what's in scope, what's out of scope. And you know what, actually, I can tell you what a decision that I've made recently that I go, oh no, this is out of scope now. I used to just be a lot more unfiltered, as in like, I don't know, if you started blogging, like I started blogging like 2009, it was very much like, here's how many poops I did today kind of thing. You know, it was just a little bit more like, yeah. And so I started just going, oh wow, do people need to know about that medical procedure that I had? Yeah. That's fine. That can be out of scope. I'm allowed to be private as well. It's, I don't talk about my sex life, for example. No, if I met you face to face, I would talk to you about my sex life. I would talk to you about my hemorrhoids. But I was like, is this useful to share? And is it okay if I keep things for myself? I no longer share pictures of my kids. Back of their head, totally. But I was like, oh, why am I doing this? You know, like I don't talk about my body. And there's a couple of reasons why. Like one is I think when you start to go down that path of like, oh, I'm a personality driven business or whatever, everything's up for grabs. Everyone is entitled to know everything about myself. Yeah. But then people start to think you're like a Sims character. Like if you change your hair, people go, oh, I loved your hair before. And you go, I'm not a Sims character.
Right.
So I just stopped talking about that.
And
that's trial and error.
That is really, really important. I think it is going out of vogue for people to spill their guts in that way and to actually rein in the energy and really decide, you know, what we're going to share. And I love your 4 pillars. I think that coming up with 4 pillars is a really good idea if somebody has a social media that they want to be intentional about, whether they have a business or not. I think that that's just a really, really wise idea.
You can be you and you can be relatable, but also like, is a business. So for example, I pre-schedule a lot of my content, and that is because, again, ADHD, if I did it in real time, there would be 20 posts in a day and then nothing for 3 weeks. And so I do this like as a service that I have to drip feed out my genius, right? Yes. And so there's like 2 days a month where I'm like super productive. And so I go, and I create all this stuff and then I put it into my social media schedule and it just comes out. And then my team takes whatever post resonates for that week and turns it into a newsletter. So I'll have friends go, oh my God, your newsletter was amazing today. And I go, what was it about? I'm like, what did I say? Because it was real and true in the moment that I created it. Right. And they received that magic. When they consumed it, it was real and it is real. But I don't need to be doing that in real time. I don't need to be processing all my stuff in real time. And so I remember, like Madonna said this, right? Madonna works for me. And so it's not like Denise Lucky Bitch Chillpreneur is fake. It's just that she works for me. Like I'm a real person with, you know, kids and stretch marks, but like Lucky Bitch Denise serves a purpose. And then I don't take things as personally. Like if people send hate mail or whatever, I'm just like, that's fair enough. Like, it's not me. If we were sitting down, you'd probably like me, but it's fine that you don't like my business, me. And again, it's not fake, but it just gives me a layer so I don't feel like I'm a commodity. Like me, I'm not a commodity. And actually, when we moved to this house, people are like, are you going to do a house tour? And I was like, oh, no. Like, no, I'm not actually, because this is where I live and this is my home. Not everything is saleable. My knowledge and my expertise and all that stuff. Yeah, you can buy that for $2,000 by joining my Money Bootcamp. Yeah. Like I'm not excluding you from my house, but it was a really good upgrade, I think, for me in maybe the last year or two.
Such a good boundary. And I love that Denise Lucky Bitch works for me. That's a really good one. I'm going to be using that one. So final question, can you take us through your day in terms of your morning practice and any sort of practices that you do throughout the day, all the way to bedtime, to keeping your money mindset in the right place?
Oh, wow. I love this question, right? Because I saw someone recently talk about morning routines and how a lot of people with ADHD or young kids or chronic illness feel really like failures for not having these amazing, perfect, manifesting morning routines. And so the truth is, I wake up at like 5 o'clock because one of my kids is usually up and I'm super grumpy and like yelling at everyone. I'm just like, why does everyone have to wake up this early? Like, why? It's not okay. So I'm like a super cranky bitch until whatever. And at 7 o'clock, my housekeeper comes and she makes everyone breakfast, makes everyone lunch, does all the laundry, does all the things. And I've recently asked her to help me with some of my routines, as in I've asked her to put my vitamins next to my breakfast. So they come in a little packet. Yeah, they come in a little packet already done. So I don't have to, I've bought so many of those organizers. I never use them. And I asked her to put my collagen powder into my porridge. I have the same food pretty much every day. And so that already sets me up of like, if I had to make breakfast for people, do all that stuff, I would have no energy for anything. I really wouldn't. I just know my capacity is pretty short in this season of my life to create. And then it really depends on the day. I do all of my calls Tuesday, Wednesday. And so to set up for that, I usually get a blow dry Monday or first thing Tuesday morning, because otherwise I just wouldn't feel like getting on camera. So I do those.
Yes. You're speaking my language so much.
And I work a little bit at the salon, but like I buy them in packs of 10. So they're maybe $30 for a blowout, which is so reasonable. If you're going to have an excuse to not get on camera and not do your live streams or whatever, I just take that excuse right out. Right. And so for me, that is a manifesting ritual, getting my hair done, because the cascade effect of that is so positive for me. And I would even say doing calls, doing things like this is a manifesting practice for me, because I'm speaking out loud my desires. I'm reminding myself about practices and rituals and things. And I would say there's a few things that are layered in that I probably don't even remember. So my phone, the screensaver is a goal. It's a picture, a nice picture, and it has my goal written on it. So I see that unconsciously, subconsciously, billions of times a day. My screensaver on my computer, it says, create every day and sell more boot camps.
I love it.
Yeah, every time. I don't know if you can even see that.
Yes. Oh my God, this is so good.
So every time I open up my computer, and it's on both my laptops. So I have one laptop that lives in my office and one that lives out there. You know, listening to whatever I listen to when I'm in my car, that's a manifesting ritual. What are you listening to? So I'll listen to podcasts about writing, about creating. My computer password is my income goal. So, I was saying I make, $3.8 million. My password is easy $10 million for my computer.
Amazing. Yes.
I don't care about sharing that, because what are you going to do? Come over to my house and break into my laptop?
Right.
Easy 10 million. And so there's still part of me that has to acclimatize to that, right? What would it be like to have an easy $10 million? So that's just embedded into my day. And then there's probably little things around, like this candle, for example. This is my beach house manifesting candle. And it has no wax left in it, but I still keep it here because when I worked in my office, I would put this on and I would go, one day I'm going to look out my window and I'm going to see the ocean. One day I'm going to look out and see the ocean. So scent for me is a really good manifesting tool. Perfume, clothing is a manifesting tool for me sometimes. Jewelry. So like I wear a money. So this is a coin.
Yeah.
Before I could afford it, I would just buy them from, cheap stores. But this is a gold-plated coin from like the 1200s. So it's an actual real coin.
Oh my gosh, it's gorgeous.
Now, but that's an upgrade, right? Because it used to just be like just a cheapie, but it still worked. It was still great. So even you asking that, at first I was thinking, I don't do anything. And then I'm like, I do all these things. I do EFT with the kids every night as part of their bedtime routine, which is a reminder to do it for myself. So we always do, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. And we do affirmations. So one affirmation I'm playing with is, I am a genius.
Ooh, and I love it.
Yeah. And so my little 3-year-old, she's going, I am a genius. And I'm like, so great. So even though I don't feel like I consciously have to sit down and go, what am I manifesting today?
Right.
All of those things are just layered in that I don't even remember. Like I don't have to change my password every day. I have to write it in, may as well write in something good. It's already there on my phone. I don't have to think about it. So we talk about this a lot in Money Bootcamp too, about how you can create as many anchors in your life as possible. But I'm telling you, when I'm manifesting a big goal, like when I was manifesting this house, the rose farm, nothing is off limit. I would sing songs related to my goal. Yes. So when we were like buying the rose, because it's a rose farm, my farm out in the country, I would sing Everything's Coming Up Roses from Gypsy, the musical. Because, you know, when you've got ADHD, you've got a song just always in the background of your mind constantly. So I'm always trying to direct that to a positive song. And I would write on my mirror. I would put things on the inside of kitchen cabinets. I would print out my dream board. I would look at my Pinterest dream board because I love using Pinterest for manifesting. I'd look at that all day. If I was buying property, I would watch the real estate video, the listing video. I would go visit. So actually I'm manifesting something now. I have no idea how far in the future it is, but there's this industrial property near our farm. And every time I go past, I go, Mark, that's going to be a retail park that we're going to create there one day. So we go visit it. And I'm like, I have no idea what seeds I'm planting there, right? I have no idea. And so I think my philosophy is throw everything at it. How can you engage all of your senses, especially if you can automate them? How can you engage all of your senses to believe, every cell of your body to believe that it's possible? And you might just think, oh, it's just a candle. But it added to my belief. And that's why I can't get rid of it. Even though it's got, as I said, it's got no wax in it anymore. I could put a new one in. But I'm like, this might have made the difference.
Because you're thinking about it every day and it becomes just part of the routine. And you're feeling like it's already there. I know for me, those objects really make a difference too. They really can. Good. You have given us an incredible wealth of tips and tools and techniques and mindsets. I'm so excited for people to hear this. It's going to be so good and helpful. Tell us, where can we find you? How can people work with you?
So I'm so easy to find everywhere on the web. My website's denisedt.com. If you go to denisedt.com/blocks, there is a free workshop there about identifying money blocks, especially for entrepreneurs. And then my social handles are the same everywhere. So Denise DT is Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Although Twitter is usually me like ranting about politics, so not so much fun manifesting stuff. But I love getting DMs on Instagram, especially like send me a picture of your manifesting candle. Send it to both of us, right?
Yeah, send it over.
I'm Denise DT. Kassi, what's your answer?
I'm Kassi Underwood. It's Kassi Underwood.
Perfect. Take a picture of your screensaver on your computer, because those things really make a difference. And I remember I had a big goal once and my friend was like, oh, so what's your plan? And I said, oh, I'm just going to change my password. And she goes, just like that? And I said, that will probably do it.
Yep.
So
that's all it takes.
You know, honestly, it's those little things just really add up over time. And we have to consciously do them, because unconsciously the bad things are adding up and compounding over time. Oh, you're not good enough. Like, it's there. We know that that's there. So it's like you can just deliberately create the other side of it, which is just little reminders in your day of, oh, you can do it. Oh, wow, look at that person on Instagram that she's doing it. Yeah, because you followed her. You've deliberately sought out ways to strengthen your belief and create your armor around yourself.
Right. It's so good. And I will say I've done the password thing too, and it's really a game changer. So amazing. I hope everybody will join your boot camp and read all of your books. They've been so life-changing for me, honestly, just made a huge difference in a really short period of time.
I'm so glad. And like, we didn't even say about the books, but they're available on Amazon, all the normal places, Kindle, paperback, and Audible as well, if you just like to listen. I do the recording on all of those. And I would say if you want to start with just manifesting stuff, Lucky Bitch, money mindset, Get Rich Lucky Bitch. And if like entrepreneurship and, you know, looking for some practical advice about, you know, the stuff we're talking about manifesting, but also marketing and setting up a business model and some boundaries, then Chillpreneur is a good place to start too. But just take action, just get into the Denise world, and hopefully we'll work together one day in the future.
Yes, seriously, get into the Denise world. It's amazing. Your emails are incredible. Everything is so good, you guys. So get in there. Denise, thank you so much for being here today. It meant the world to me. I've been looking forward to this so much, and I'm just so grateful.
What a fun conversation. And thanks so much for introducing me to all your lovely peeps.
That was another episode of Big Energy with me, your host, Kassi Underwood. Were you into it? Go ahead and click the subscribe button and leave a review. You can also find me online at KassiUnderwood.com. See you next time. And remember, Money Metaphysics for Maverick Women, my 6-month program, is open for enrollment. Learn more and register at KassiUnderwood.com/MMMW.